And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Welcome, everyone. I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is Alaska weather on Thursday, June 19th, 2025. And we start out with the weather-related headlines across the state of Alaska. We still have flood advisories in effect for some of the North Slope rivers. The good news is those water levels continue to gradually come down after quite a blowout, after just a rapid snow melt and runoff that happened last weekend up through the first much of this week. And then we have summer solstice arriving for Friday evening at 6:42 p.m. on June 20th. And the solstice can happen depending on the astronomy and geometry of it all between June 19th and the 23rd. This year it'll be on the evening of the 20th. We have a red flag warning in effect that'll go in effect Friday afternoon through midnight Friday night for some scattered storms. Lightning strikes could cause some issues in central eastern interior tomorrow Friday. And then overall, a warming and drying trend is expected across the Panhandle this weekend. There are some heat advisories that have been issued. I'll have more on that in a moment. New exit up there along the North Slope, the Colville River, mostly sunny, 65 degrees. And the flood warning on the Colville River has been pushed down to a flood advisory as the water levels there continue to gradually recede. But I mentioned the other day, the river there at up there, upriver, one of the gauges got blown out. The runoff was so high. So the USGS will have to go out there and check that out to see exactly the extent of the damage there along that area. Dutch Harbor Haystack, we have a low, rather strong low for this time of year, just above 980 millibars. Gale force low bringing rain, wind, and fog to Dutch Harbor on Alaska, 49 degrees. And then as we head up into the interior, Delta Junction, to the distance there, looking northeast, we can see those cumulonimbus clouds or thunderstorms that have developed. 82 degrees, very warm up there across the interior. And then over in Haines, hazy sunshine, just 62 right now. But as you get further up, away from the water, there is a heat advisory in effect for that area of the northern Panhandle, especially along stretches of the Haines and Klondike highways. We'll see highs in the 70s to near 80 degrees Friday afternoon and again on Saturday. So as far as what we have right now for red flag warnings here been issued for the area just north of Fairbanks, including the White Mountains, surrounding higher terrain for the day Friday afternoon till midnight Friday. We expect some thunderstorms to develop along this region, and as they work their way across Friday afternoon and evening, there is the potential that lightning strikes could initiate some new fires. We still have on, as I mentioned, the Colville River and the Sag River still will have a flood advisory in effect until later afternoon on Friday. The flood advisory for the Kapparik River will expire this Thursday evening at 10 p.m. So the good news is the big snowmelt runoff is beginning to show signs of receding, and we expect that trend going into the weekend. Further south and east, we have heat advisories in effect now through Saturday evening, but mainly this is going to be Friday afternoon, evening, Saturday afternoon, evening. Highs along stretches here of the Haines and Klondike Highway could reach the 70s to near 80 degrees. Also, the potential for enhanced snowmelt runoff because of the warm temperatures will cause some of the area creeks and rivers to rise. So that's another thing to watch for in the Panhandle this weekend because of the warmer temperatures and drier conditions. Now, here is an image from that the River Forecast Center put together. This is the lower portion of the Colville River, passing a new exit and going out here to the delta. You get out to, the thing to note, you can see the sea ice has melted off and retreated. There's been a tremendous push of freshwater snowmelt from the snowpack melting here this past week. So that has caused the ice along the delta there to melt out. And the good thing is the water levels will continue to gradually fall along the Colville River. You still have some areas where you see the residual flooding. When the river came up, it filled these areas off to the side. So quite an impactful event for this time, just given the delay in the breakup, and then the snowmelt runoff really all came together at once with those warm temperatures. So moving on to the next subject, fire weather update from the Alaska Interagency Coordination Center. One of the forecasters there put this together, and wide thunderstorm footprint. We expect widespread thunderstorms this weekend across a good part of the interior, and some of them will produce some locally heavy rain. And there's a high potential there could be lightning strikes that start new fires on the edge of these storms that are producing wetting rains. So there's a very high ignition and growth potential in the interior where there are critically dry fuels, meaning the grasses and some of the underbrush and even trees have had a chance to dry out, so that this means if they can get started by something like lightning, it can really take off. And this warming and drying trend for the Panhandle is also expected this weekend. One thing, the outlook into the weekend is rather than having storms so much in the southwest interior, we're going to see it shift a little more eastward again. So areas of the central and eastern interior will have a more likelihood of scattered thunderstorms that could start some fires through the course of the weekend. And here's the fire danger coming up. For Friday, this is the grass adjective, highest here over the Yukon Flats. And we also see high here over the southwest just because of the dry conditions that have been there. And then we find that with the spruce adjective, that is the lead carrier fire, especially as we get here toward the end of June and into July. We find that increasing up here through the Tanana valleys, upper Yukon, in through the Yukon Flats. And this is going to be the area that we see the enhanced scattered thunderstorms here over the weekend. So there's a better chance we could see new fire starts there. And certainly if you're going to be out recreating or working out in any of these areas of the interior, be very careful how you handle fire, as well as using any type of equipment that could send a spark. And then we have coming up here for Friday evening, 6:42 p.m., Alaska Daylight Time, the summer solstice for the Northern Hemisphere, the longest daylight, shortest night. Some areas, as you go further north of the Arctic Circle, the sun does not set. And looking for the satellite imagery here, we put it in motion. We have a little circulation here near and south of Haida Gwaii, still some lingering clouds and a few showers in the Panhandle, but it'll start to dry out here, especially as we get into the weekend. So those of you in the Panhandle, hang on, you're going to see some sunnier, warmer, drier weather. Some haze, though. We've had a lot of haze come in from Western Canada, so it may be a hazy sunshine to deal with because of all the forest fires going on across Canada. Now back further up here in the interior, you can see the scattering of the thunderstorms, these enhanced white cloud tops, the anvils of those showers and storms. And then out here in through the North Pacific and Central Aleutians, we have a fairly strong low lifting northward. It's going to kind of cross the Central Aleutians later tonight and Friday morning, and then just kind of sit in this region and send an occluded front north and eastward. That front will eventually get up here toward the southwest interior and all the way into the western Gulf by the time we get into Saturday. So looking at the surface weather maps to start out late tonight into Friday morning, we have a weak ridge of high pressure from the North Pacific into the Gulf. We have thermal heat lows along northwest Canada into the interior, which is a common feature when you have the warm temperatures like we do. And then here's this low just above 980 millibars. It'll be crossing the central Aleutians very late tonight and during the morning hours on Friday. So by Friday afternoon, the low does come up, the pressure to 988 millibars. This is a gale force low, and this front will have some bands of rain or rain showers along with some gusty winds, especially pushing out of the eastern Aleutians up into the Alaska Peninsula. Ridge still holding here, North Pacific into the Gulf. We find potential for some additional thunderstorms forming in the afternoon. See some along the Brooks Range, especially the southern slopes there. Things trying to dry out in the Panhandle. And then for Saturday, definitely Saturday will be a sunnier, warmer day with hazy sunshine there in the Panhandle. And back here to the west, the low is just still sitting just north of the central Aleutians out through the lower Bering with this arcing, weakening, occluded front with showers being pushed northward up along areas of the southwest as you push inland from the YK deltas and Bristol Bay. And then again, we could see some additional storms fire up along Talkeetna Mountains, the Wrangels, on up here into areas of the interior, back down through northwest Canada. And for Sunday, more of the same. We find the low still kind of sitting there just north of the central eastern Aleutians and the former occluded front weakening, with a weak low taking shape just south of the Gulf in the North Pacific, and a continuation of the thermal low and trough that we find along western Canada up into the interior. There's going to be scattered showers and storms redevelop again with the daytime heating on Sunday afternoon across a broad area of the interior. So temperature-wise, quite mild and warm. Some lows may not get below 60 here at, say, the Yukon Flats, Arctic Village. Otherwise, 50s. We find temperatures coming up a bit, too, even along the Arctic coast, to 40 there at Dead Horse, 40 over at Savunga. And then coming down through South Central, lows generally in the 50s, upper 40s to middle 50s for the Panhandle. You can see the warmth here on Friday afternoon, 87, 88 or so here at Fort Yukon and Eagle. That heating up through the Tanana Valley will pop off some storms, especially along areas of, you get up into the White Mountains and the 40-mile Gold Country. You find even 80-degree readings spreading westward along and north of the Yukon River, so potentially even 75 or so there at up towards Shaktoolik, and so it's pretty impressive there. And then for Saturday morning, still lows down near 60 perhaps here at Delta Junction and Fort Yukon. We find some low temperatures along the Yukon, even 51 there for a low at Nome. And we find lows in the lower 50s across the Panhandle and generally across a good portion of South Central. And again, Saturday afternoon, we're going to see temperatures in the 70s. Again, a few areas, especially where that heat advisory is for the Haines Highway there, could 70s to near 80 in a few spots. And then up here, more likely to see some 80-degree temperatures, 87 again, Eagle, Fort Yukon, and even westward along the south slopes here of the Brooks Range up in through the middle Yukon. And as we look westward, coolest temperatures are along the YK deltas. Highs may make lower 50s, maybe 60 at Imanik, 48 at both Savunga on down to St. Paul, and then temperatures generally across the Alaska Peninsula into the eastern Aleutians should make at least the lower 50s. And the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook approaching the end of the month, June 25th through the 29th, still indicating that above normal temperatures may continue across the northeast quadrant of the mainland, especially from around Fairbanks, Yukon Flats, up through Arctic Village, Kaktovik, on over to Utqiagvik. Temperatures near normal in between, and then a bit below normal along Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, trailing out along the Alaska Peninsula, and maybe a little closer to normal for the Panhandle. Precipitation-wise, though, could end up being a little above normal here across southern eastern areas of the mainland, all along the Gulf Coast, and extending into the Panhandle. Again, that's the precipitation outlook for June 25th through June 29th.